Welcome to another deep dive. Today we're taking a close look at a fascinating aspect of the plant world, ferns. Specifically, how those iconic fronds unfurl. Our guide for this journey is a blog post called Notes on Gardening, Part 434, The Circinate Vernation of Ferns. You can find it on the qianmeng.org website if you want to follow along.
It's a great post. Really digs into the details of how these ancient plants grow.
And the terminology alone is intriguing. Circinate vernation. Just the name makes me think of something complex and mysterious.
It does sound a bit intimidating, but it's simpler than you might think. Circinate refers to the circular coiled shape, and vernation basically means the arrangement of those young leaves or fronds in the bud.
So it's basically describing how fern fronds emerge all curled up in that tight spiral. Like imagine a spring super tightly wound.
Exactly. That visual is spot on. And that shape, called a crozier, isn't just about saving space. It's actually a clever protective strategy.
Ah, so it's like a tiny shield for the delicate tip of the frond, protecting it as it pushes up through the soil, maybe even some debris.
Right on. It's like nature's way of ensuring that the most vulnerable part, that growing tip, is well protected during those crucial early stages. And if you've ever heard the term fiddlehead, it's referring to the same thing.
Fiddlehead, crozier. The names alone paint such vivid pictures. And the fiddlehead makes sense too. The coiled frond really does resemble the scrollwork on a violin.
It does. It's amazing how much detail is packed into that tiny coil.
Speaking of detail, how does that tightly wound fiddlehead eventually unfurl? What triggers that process?
It's not a timer or anything like that. It's actually a self-powered process. As the lower part of the frond matures, it starts photosynthesizing. That increases the concentration of solutes, drawing in water and fueling expansion. It's almost like the frond is powering its own unfurling.
So it's not passive at all. It's actively pushing outward, fueled by its own growth. That's incredible. But while it's unfurling, doesn't that leave it vulnerable?
You'd think so, right? And many ferns have developed extra layers of protection. Some have long hairs, others have scales. Both help to protect the unfurling frond.
Like a little coat. I love how nature finds all these clever ways to protect these plants. It's fascinating how much thought, so to speak, has gone into their evolution.
It really is. And speaking of evolution, this blog post made a point that surprised me. Fern fronds, despite looking like leaves, aren't considered true leaves. Can you explain that? I thought anything green and leafy was a leaf.
I know it's a common misconception. The key difference is in their function. Leaves are primarily focused on photosynthesis, making food for the plant.
Right. But fern fronds do double duty. They photosynthesize, like leaves, but they also play a crucial role in reproduction. They carry the spores that ferns use to reproduce.
So it's like they've combined two essential functions into one structure. Talk about efficiency. That's way different from the typical leaf.
Exactly. It's a key distinction that sets ferns apart from other plants and highlights their unique evolutionary path.
It really makes you appreciate the complexity of these seemingly simple plants. But that's for next time. Join us for part 2, where we'll delve into the fascinating world of fern spores.
Looking forward to it.
Welcome back. I'm still trying to wrap my head around these fern fronds. They're like the ultimate multitaskers, handling both food production and reproduction.
They really are. And when it comes to reproduction, it all boils down to those fascinating spores.
Yeah, those tiny spores. You mentioned they're different from seeds. How so?
Well, a seed is like a little package. It contains a tiny plant embryo and its own food supply, ready to go. A spore, on the other hand, is a single-celled unit. No embryo, no pre-packed lunch, just a tiny speck of potential.
So way more basic, and that makes them super lightweight, right?
Exactly. Think of them like dust particles, easily carried by the wind.
Okay, so they're tiny and travel easily. But doesn't that make it a long shot for them to land in the right place to actually grow? Seems like a pretty inefficient strategy.
It's definitely a gamble. Ferns compensate by releasing massive quantities of spores. It's a numbers game. Increase the odds by sheer volume.
So it's like they're playing the lottery, hoping a few lucky spores hit the jackpot.
In a way, yes. And the strategy clearly works, considering how widespread ferns are. They've colonized habitats all over the world.
Wow, so those tiny spores are the key to their global domination. But let's say a spore does land in a good spot. What happens next?
That's where things get even more interesting. Instead of sprouting directly into a new fern, the spore develops into something called a gametophyte.
A gamedo what now? Okay, you've officially lost me. What in the world is a gametophyte?
It's a small, heart-shaped structure.
Yeah.
And here's the key. It produces the sex cells, the gametes that are needed for fertilization.
So it's like a middleman. The spore makes this little thing, and then that thing makes the stuff needed to create a new fern.
Precisely. And once fertilization happens, then you get the sporophyte, which is the actual fern plant that we all recognize.
Wow, so there's this whole hidden stage. It's not just seed to sprout, it's spore to gametophyte to fern.
Exactly. And this two-stage process, this alternation of generations, is a big part of what makes ferns so successful. They've evolved this intricate system for spreading and surviving.
It makes you realize that there's a lot going on beneath the surface, even with plants. But one thing still bugs me. If fronds aren't true leaves, why do they even look like leaves? Did nature just decide to recycle the same design?
That's a great question, and it leads us to a concept called convergent evolution. Sometimes completely unrelated organisms evolve similar features because those features are just really good solutions to common problems.
So the flat, broad shape of a frond is just super efficient for capturing sunlight, whether you're a fern or a maple tree. Different paths, same destination.
Exactly. It's a great example of how evolution can shape different organisms in similar ways, depending on the challenges they face.
This fern deep dive has been full of surprises, and I have a feeling there's more to come. Let's wrap things up in part 3.
Sounds good. I'm ready when you are.
And we're back for the final leg of our fern journey. It's been quite a revelation, learning about their unique growth strategies and that whole two-stage reproduction with the mysterious gametophyte. But before we go, there's one thing we haven't fully explored.
You're right. We talked about the differences between fern fronds and true leaves, but never really got to the why behind it all. Why does that distinction matter so much?
Yeah, is it just a case of botanists splitting hairs, or does it point to something deeper about ferns and their place in the plant world?
It's way more than just a technicality. Recognizing that fronds aren't leaves helps us appreciate just how unique ferns are, how they've followed their own evolutionary path for millions of years.
So it's about seeing them as distinct, not just lumping them in with all the other leafy plants out there.
Exactly. Ferns have solved the challenges of survival and reproduction differently from flowering plants or conifers. And that's reflected not just in their fronds, but in their whole structure, how they grow, how they spread. They're doing their own thing.
So it's like they're playing the same game as other plants, but with a different set of rules and still winning.
Precisely. They thrive in shady forests, cling to rocky cliffs, even handle deserts. They've found their niche by being ferns, not by trying to be leaves.
That's incredible. It makes you realize that diversity is key, not just for animals, but for plants, too. We need ferns with their unique adaptations and ways of life, just as much as we need all the other plants out there.
Exactly. Ferns contribute to the richness of our ecosystems in ways that other plants don't. They provide habitat, help cycle nutrients, and add to the overall biodiversity of our planet. Losing them would be a huge loss.
This deep dive has completely changed my perspective. I used to just see ferns as, well, ferns. Now I see them as these ancient innovators, survivors, masters of adaptation. It's humbling and inspiring.
That's what we're all about here on the Deep Dive, pushing past those initial assumptions, getting curious, and realizing there's always more to discover, even in the seemingly familiar.
So as we wrap up our fern adventure, what's the takeaway message for our listeners? What do you hope they walk away with?
If ferns, with their ancient strategies, can still thrive today, what other wonders of nature are we overlooking? What can we learn from them if we take the time to observe, to question, to get curious?
That's a perfect note to end on. Go out there, find some ferns, and see them with fresh eyes. You might be surprised by what you discover. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the fascinating world of ferns.
It's been a pleasure. Happy exploring, everyone.